So hello everyone, good afternoon. My name is Teruhide Sato. I'm the founder of the company Netprice BEENOS. I'm from Tokyo. And I think time is very limited, so I just go through who we are and what we are doing in Tokyo and in Asia first, and then we jump into the discussion. And there are some Japan-related questions. I'm very happy to answer to any of the questions regarding Japan, hopefully. Oh, manual? Yeah. So BEENOS is actually, I founded 15 companies, mostly in Japan, and 3 went public. The first one it was a payment company, and second one is the e-commerce current company, and third one is the price data company. So it's pretty normal for Japanese internet companies to be listed. It's not that hard like here in the US. Or US, I suppose for most of the startups, the final exit is more for the buyout, but for Japan, it's very normal to go public. And then we have done a number of investment, started from Japan, and 3 years back we started our investment in other parts of Asia. We have done investment in the US, Turkey, England, India, Indonesia, and China. And for the Bali, we have done over 35 very small checks, mostly along with Vicon, Textures, 500 startups, angel type investment. We went for TradeUp, Everlane, Flipkart, Anyper, Camcode. So those companies that we observe that this kind of tendency or trend might come over to Japan in 2 or 3 years, and we are supporting those companies to go to the Asian market. And then this is the current portfolio companies in the emerging market. How we observe is we tackle the arbitrage investment opportunities that how we observed 15 years back in Japan or US, or 10 years back in China. Similar patterns are happening. And I've been mostly in the e-commerce businesses. So in my opinion, for over 15 years in my experience, the number one e-commerce business is actually marketplace, the king. And if there's a queen, it's payment. And there are multiple princes, and the number one prince is actually price comparison. Number 2, affiliate network. Number 3, storefront hosting. Regardless the vision or country, we observe similar patterns of sequences of those platform-related businesses. So we follow that pattern, and then started from Indonesia, which has over 240 million population. So Tokopedia is one of the largest Southeast Asia e-commerce platform companies, the single largest C2C marketplace company in Indonesia. We did an investment 2 years back. And the payment for Veritrans, ShopPlus for marketplace in India, for the Queen King. Citrus is together with Sequoia Capital India. It's a payment company in India. And we also cover Turkey. Turkey actually has a pretty sizable population with over 70 million population. And we did this investment to the Prince, Kakche, the price comparison, the largest one, and the Stripe equivalent payment company called EasyCo, and some mobile remittance company and so on. So talking about Asia, I think this kind of session is very important because we can bridge each of our strengths that we have in each region, from each region. And talking about Asia, this is actually, I brought 2 numbers, 2 sheets talking about Asia. This is the internet population. The blue one is the total population. And the green one is the population of internet users in Asia. So as you can see, already the number of Asian internet users is number 1. But still, the internet penetration rate is 27.5%, which that shows we have a tremendous potential or amount of growth in terms of any internet mobile-related businesses. And this is another number how Asia has a great potential for now and for the future. This explains the GMV, the transaction volume of Taobao, the Chinese giant, which has over 80% of the market share in China, and then eBay and Amazon. And last year, how much Taobao transacted a year? Last year, 2013. which is over $170 billion transactions among one platform, dominant. That is actually, when we sum up, Amazon, Global, eBay, and Rakuten, it cannot reach to Taobao. So when I look at this, I somehow thought that for consumer-facing businesses like marketplace, payment, e-commerce, at the end of the day, population is everything. Of course, it matters, how the internet penetration rate could be higher, or some technological issue, logistic issue, and several other issues. But at the end of the day, population really determines the size of the business. So that's why we tapped into the Southeast Asia market, and also covers South Asia market like India. So I think I should finish my presentation here and maybe talk about Japan. Should I? No, I think we can talk about it together. Yeah. Okay.
So we'll have a chat about Japan very quickly. Time is our biggest enemy right now. Okay, you guys very briefly covered why you're looking at Japan, right? Why you're looking at Southeast Asia, and mainly you say population, right? Generally, do all Japanese investors look at that, or is it something that you guys specifically look at?
Well, I think it's always difficult and dangerous to generalize. For example, Japanese, right? There are many kinds of Japanese, and there are many kinds of size of companies. But I think for those Japanese companies who are interested in the Southeast Asia market, there are several reasons. One is actually there is a certain geological reason. Japan used to be, and also now, one of the largest foreign direct investors to ASEAN countries. For taking as Indonesia as an example, Japan has been for over 1 decade or more than that as the single largest investment country, investing into the social platforms, energies, plants, and everything. So historically, Japan has a very good time with the ASEAN countries. That's one of the reasons. And the second reason is actually, it's kind of a rebalancing. Japan is very well also connected to China. And, but Chinese labor cost is getting high. So for those manufacturing companies, they have to rebalance the manufacturing network, supply chain network, and then they go to south. So for those manufacturing companies, the reason is actually, the relation with China. And we somehow also, this is a pretty sensitive issue maybe, but we also have some boundary issue. Japan and China, Japan and Korea. So for those kind of risk hedge reasons is also laying down there. And also, I think Japan is somehow back in economical term. So with the current new Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, we call this phenomenon called Abenomics, Abe economics. So Japan is now, after 20 years lost 2 decades, but now the Japan stock price is going up. So after 1.5 years, after Abe became the Prime Minister, the Japan Nikkei exchange market soared up to double. So that actually pushes Japanese companies to do more foreign investment. Not only the investment, but also acquisitions. So SoftBank did an acquisition to Sprint. And Rakuten did an acquisition to Viki and Viber recently. And also Recruit, the largest recruiting agency company in Japan, acquired the company called Indeed. Not only the internet area, but also the Dentsu, the largest advertising agencies, now aggressively seeking for the acquisition opportunities, and they bought one of the largest agency company in Asia. And any other. So with that background, since Japanese economy is back, and then with some geological issues there, so Japanese companies are now getting more aggressive to go to other parts of Asia in terms of investment.
So Hiro, you work very closely with entrepreneurs. right? Especially with founders and all that, right? What is the clear, distinct difference you see with the Southeast Asia founders and the Japanese founders?
I feel like the entrepreneurs at the Southeast Asia side have a little bit of an advantage than Japanese entrepreneurs, to be honest, because Japanese entrepreneurs have a very high tendency of not wanting to read English. And actually, Southeast Asian entrepreneurs is a little bit better at reading English, so therefore they have a broader access to information. A lot of it, they know a lot about like lean startup method, all these other methodologies in building companies and distribution and those kind of things. And actually, I feel like they're at an advantage than Japanese entrepreneurs. Yeah.
Who are really we mentioned early stage investors in all that companies, right? Who are some of the key players in Japan that are aggressively looking at Southeast Asia, other than you guys?
Okay, so it seems although it's pretty dangerous to generalize, but if I have to categorize,
You look at early stage.
But there will be two types of investors. One is internet giant or mobile giant like Rakuten, SoftBank, Gree, or one of the largest gaming company, and DNA, also another game giant, and also Line. Those internet giant companies seeking for the investment or acquisition in Southeast Asia market. And also another one is actually like trading companies, for NTT, KDDI, those large telco companies are also seeking for, and then they mostly seek for the acquisitions, not the investment. But there are two patterns of investment.
So earlier we had this question on culture, right? Cultural differences. And since Japan has kind of done it before, tried and tested, if there's a high likelihood you might impose that on Southeast Asian companies. Do you agree or disagree with that to a certain extent?
Well, it really depends on the investor. So there are a couple of investors that have this notion where they think that whatever is done in Japan can be replicated in a different country, which is very wrong, I feel, because I feel like every different region, every different country has a very different strategy depending on, they have different circumstances. So even payment would have different types of payments in different countries, right? And different kind of execution. So it really depends on the investor. There are some investors who actually invested in a Japanese entrepreneur who is building a company in Indonesia, right? So it's, I'm not sure if that's a right way to do it. But of course, talking about BEENOS, we think the local entrepreneur really needs to execute and has to be addressed by a local entrepreneur. Yeah. Unless you have anything to add.
We believe in the entrepreneurs, and most of the internet mobile businesses should be driven by the local hands-on entrepreneurs. And then we would like to facilitate those by connecting to other parts of the world or providing them some knowledge, expertise, and so on. And I think again, it somehow also really differs to which pattern, which category of the investors that when we talk about this investment. For example, for those big companies doing this infrastructure-related business like logistics, telecoms, they try to acquire. And then for those very internet service-oriented businesses, maybe they do the investment and seeking for the potential exit pattern. So I think it differs.
So which market are you guys particularly interested in? Like if we break down Southeast Asia, which are the specific countries that you guys are interested in?
Again, for the last session, there are also discussions about when we talk about Southeast Asia is composed of many countries and many languages, many religions and everything. So since we as a company do the investment, we are not doing the investment from our fund. We do straight from the corporation. So that means we have to do more focus. And then our expertise is mostly from payment, marketplace, and so on. So then we tapped into the market from Indonesia, which has a large population. And then we also did a second investment in India. So Indonesia and India are the top tier for us, the targeted countries.
We're kind of running out of time. So any questions from the floor before we close this? Any at all? Yeah, go ahead.
So in some of the other panels, of course, they talk about differences between market share and sort of like the emphasis on that. And it was kind of interesting because when I was studying in Japan, one of the big emphasis on Japanese business strategy when Japan was kind of at its peak was market share. Everything was all about market share, market share. That's the priority. If you get market share, then you can figure out other monetization models. Yet it seems like the perception is that sometimes when you go to these meetings with investors in Japan, some of the people I've had to deal with, it's like, how much revenue can you guarantee us? And I find that surprising, and I'm just wondering, is it more of a generation change that you're seeing from like one type of business approach that works and then a different generation? And is the old way kind of coming back in the sense? So, you know, that let's go out, let's expand, let's grab market share.
Market share versus revenue.
Yeah. Well, I think market share kind of perception has been well spread among Japanese competitions in Japan. And then we somehow noticed that Japanese GNP hasn't been growing for 20 years. So we somehow noticed, I mean, we means Japanese all, that we have to develop other markets, otherwise market shrinks. So that's actually the perception used to be. And then when we talk about the investment, for example, as seeking for the investment opportunity, we rather go for the actual growth potential or actual growth happening to be observed. So that's my point. And then also there are some timing issues. Maybe when were you in Japan?
I go back every now and then, but I was there. I left my last start up there was about 2008.
Okay. Well, I hope it's changing. It's changing.
Oh yeah, I mean like it's because a lot of what's happening in Japan is a lot of corporations, public corporations, are building VC arms, right? They have a lot of what do you call it, the mindset of a public company. So with public companies, what they have to be very worried about is their P&L, right? So their profit and losses. So these companies need to have profits in order to be a good company to acquire for. So that's why that kind of transferred directly to the corporate venture capitalists, I feel. Yeah.
We used to be cold. Here again, we Japanese normally each other that the Japanese investors are NATO. NATO is not for North Atlantic, blah blah blah. It's a NATO for no action, talking only. It's asking questions but not make decisions. And then in Japanese understanding, when we use the word consideration, we consider it. That means normally no, right? So, but it's again changing. It's again changing because of those, geological issue, because of this, Japan economy overall is getting back, and the perception is getting, changing, and also the government itself is now stimulating and fostering the entrepreneurship. It used to be very weird, right? Like us jumping into the startups and start taking risk. Right? When we talk about taking risk at the elementary school, you'll be just picked up from the school, right? So now it's changing, and also our government is really fostering for the growth strategy, taking these entrepreneurial activities in the main part.
Well, I mean, two things that just come to mind on that is also, I mean, Abe, not many people know, but Abe came to the US and studied at USC.
Yeah.
He was very active in the entrepreneur program there.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a fresh start. I'm really happy to see him doing well and getting back into power. But the other thing that I think doesn't get talked about enough, or people don't consider, is the shrinking population in Japan in relation to a shrinking market size. So you're kind of looking at 10, 20 years down the road, you're thinking, oh my gosh, our market's going to be getting smaller and smaller, so we have to expand. Do you feel like that's coming into play more? Or?
Yes, surely it is. So just give you, the Japan population is now 130 billion, but the birth rate of Japan is 1.4. That means as time goes on, the population decreases. And then more interestingly, the median age of Japanese is 45. The median age of US is 36. So it shows, in the long run, a Japanese company, if they stick only in Japanese market, they will lose the market. So that's also really a good point.
Okay, so we gotta move on for the next session, but thanks Sato-san. So next up we have Thomas, the CEO of Bubby. So he's going to be sharing on the mobile markets for the Southeast Asian region to give you a bit of perspective on